Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Mentor Monday. Mentor Monday is your weekly microdose of encouragement, inspiration, and miracle grow on your potential as a coach. Do me a huge favor, jump inside of the chat. I want to welcome everybody who's on YouTube, on Facebook, whether you're in the Power Lunch group or you're on my main page. Welcome. Tonight's going to be amazing. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let me say hello to a couple of people because you guys know the drill, right? See this down here? Let us know that you're here. Tell us where you're joining us from, maybe something that you're excited about. And do me a huge favor, like this post and share it and comment. You know what that does? Instead of ghosting us, instead of like sneaking around and lurking in the shadows, why don't you say hello to us? Because it does us a huge favor. It tells Facebook and YouTube that we're doing a good job because that's really important to us. That's the most important thing, that I'm serving you really well. And that tells them, it communicates to them that we're doing a good job. Cool. Let me say hello to a few people. There's Becca from Canada. Welcome, Becca. Tamala from Dallas, Texas. Jason is joining us from Northern Kentucky. Harvey is joining us from South Florida. Joan is joining us from Bakersfield. Excited about creating my upcoming courses. Joan also has a book coming out, another one. Anel is joining us from San Diego. Ebony says, good evening. As always, I'm excited for Paul's nuggets for successful coaching. Thank you. And there's Shomar. Hey, tell us where you're joining us from. That would be awesome. Jennifer saying hello. Pearlie is saying hello. Kimberly is joining us from Chicago. There's Kayla. She's joining us from Como? I don't know where that's it. Where is that? What is that? Tim's joining us from Indiana. Just had my first client and it went extremely well. Way to go, Tim. That's so good. Bobby's joining us from Atascadero. Lynn is joining us from Vermont. Just launched my website yesterday. Great. Pearlie's joining us from Portland, Oregon. Oh, Columbia, Mizzou. Yeah, there we go. Because I lived in Missouri for a little bit, so I know where that's at. Shomer is joining us from Atlanta. So glad to be here. Awesome. Paul's joining us from San Diego. There we go. 2 Pauls from San Diego. How you like that? It's going to be a special night tonight. So good. Yes. Anybody else like to say hello? If you're just making it in the room, I'm just really quickly saying hello to everybody who says hello to me. Do me a huge favor and let us know that you're here. Tell us where you're joining us from. Maybe something that you're excited about in your life, something like that, and share this. So like, comment, and share. That tells Facebook that we're doing a good job, and YouTube as well. There is Patricia joining us from Natchez, Mississippi. I know where that is as well. I've actually got family in Louisiana and Mississippi, so I know exactly where you're at. Anybody else like to say hello before we jump in? All right. I'm going to assume that that's everyone that wants to say hello so far. And you know what we'll do? We'll jump back at you and say hello again in a couple of minutes. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we're either in week 4 or week 5. I can't remember. I think we're in week 4. And we've been in this series called Bad Money Beliefs That Keep You Broke. Reason why we do this series every year plus is because I see so many coaches try to break into the industry. And the wiring of the vast majority of coaches, and I say vast majority, pretty much every coach that I know, with few exceptions, are more wired. They're real people. They're people. They're all about people. They're people persons. They love people. And sometimes when they come in, because they have been serving and helping people their entire life, their door's always been the one that everybody knocks on. It's the door that's always open. They've always been the listener. They're the person that gets called up at 2 o'clock in the morning. And now they're going to start charging for something that they have been doing for free their entire life. And a lot of times there are different things that are in someone's values and belief systems, especially because I'll tell you this. A lot of the people that I know that are really, really good listeners don't get paid for it and are usually sometimes taken advantage of. Sometimes their time's not as valued. And there's a lot of these different things that kind of come along with that as a person, that now suddenly you're going to charge for something that everybody's been getting from you for free. And there's a lot of different belief systems and limiting beliefs and everything else that comes in there, but not just for coaches. I mean, honestly, most people that you know, if you talk about money to them, you bring up money, it's going to trigger an emotional reaction. And it's not going to be a positive one either. It's not going to be an excited emotional reaction. It's usually going to be a negative one. And so, what we're trying to do in this series is the most common limiting beliefs that I hear from coaches with regard to money are the ones that I'm kind of going after. And so, this has been really helpful for people. And if this has been helpful for you, go ahead and throw that in the comments and let us know. This one that I'm talking about this week is no one is interested in hiring me as a coach. Now, I have never actually went after this particular topic ever. Probably kind of grazed it a little bit, but I haven't. And so everything that I'm going to talk to you guys tonight about is going to be a little bit different, a little bit different spin. You're going to learn something tonight, besides the fact that we're going to annihilate this bad belief. And I'm going to take great pleasure in actually going after this thing. So I'm going to get out my trusty whiteboard really quickly, and I want to show you this. What we're going to do tonight is that we're going to go after this one. No one is interested in hiring me as a coach. Now, I don't know if you notice some things that stand out to you. There's some interesting things that stand out to me when I look at this thing. Like right here. No one. Doesn't that sound a little bit extreme? I mean, honestly, there's over 8 billion people, 8.5 billion people on the planet. And someone's going to say, no one is interested in hiring me as a coach. No one is, what else are we saying here? No one is, let me see if I can get a different color, interested in hiring me as a coach. No one's even interested in hiring me as a coach. So what happens is that when we say these kinds of things, regardless of how extreme this is, no one's interested. So no one is even interested in hiring me as a coach. There's some things that are some real indicators about this right here of me, some thoughts about myself. And ultimately, when I say thoughts about myself, what I'm really talking about is that we are always looking at things as lenses, a lens by which we see things, a lens by which we look at the world, and what we see is typically what we get from the perspective of these lenses. What do I mean by that? Well, let me explain to you what I'm really talking about. And I've never explained this to you guys in this way, but we're going to use a little psychological terminology so that you can kind of understand this. But let me give you a definition of something called confirmation bias. Well, Paul, what's confirmation bias? You don't usually use these kinds of terms. Well, it's really simple. What it means is that you look for information that supports your existing beliefs, and you reject information that goes against what you already believe. So here's how your lens actually works here. The way that this actually works and the way that this actually functions is that if I had what your beliefs are right here, it's your lens. I'm going to actually, sorry about the text being so fat, like I'm writing with a kid's crayon here. If you have your belief, what you already believe, and then over here, we have what we're just going to call this over here is facts and evidence. If we want to say that there's reality somewhere in there, but facts and evidence in your belief, what a person is going to do with confirmation bias is that they're going to look for the area. See this area right here? This is what confirmation bias actually is. Confirmation bias means I'm going to look at this area, and this is what my focus is. I'm going to focus on this area, and this is the only evidence that I will consider. And so when you look at it like this is all you're going to allow to come in there. It's the only thing. It's truly the only thing that you're going to look at. You're going to deny everything that's over on this other area. So if we look at it, you're going to deny, you're going to ignore all of this. This is the only thing that you're going to look at. And people do it all the time. Some of you probably think that you don't do it, but you absolutely do this. Here's the thing, is that every one of us who are sitting here right now have a lens. You have a bias by which you see things. Every one of us have them. None of us are excluded from this. We all do this. And so what we're going to do is out of all the facts and all the evidence, you know what we're going to do? We're going to try to confirm and affirm what we already know and what we already believe to be true. And here's the crazy thing about this. Here, let me tell you what science has taught us about this. Science has taught us that your brain, that something gets triggered. Let's imagine that this is what gets triggered. That you literally, you know what you get? You get brain activity. There's literally a fix that happens in your brain as soon as you're able to confirm your bias. You literally are addicted to your bias. You literally have a feel good. Oh, even if it's a bad, there is something that's going off in your brain. It's saying, I knew it. I knew I was right the entire time. You want to do that so bad. Every one of us want to do that. There is, you know, if you ever met someone and there was just something that you didn't like about them, you didn't have proof or anything, but as soon as something went wrong with them, as soon as they showed their true colors, then man, it was so validating. Like, has that ever happened to you? Like, if we're honest, it's probably happened to all of us at a certain degree in our life. See, what we have to understand is that confirmation bias works like this, because it's really the way that your brain functions, and it functions in telling a story. And bias, or telling a story, storytelling, is a way your brain attempts to make quick conclusions to save time and our butts. Because you know what your brain's trying to do? Your brain's trying to make sense of things. So you have a subconscious that's going on all the time. You have a program that's going on. And listen, if everything, it's a practical thing. So if something happened to you in your past experience, now that we get here, that information can actually help us. Because listen, if every experience that you had no memory and you had no recall, you had no bias, it would be so inefficient for your brain. You'd be like, well, what should I do? What should I do in this interaction? Should I shake you know what you're going to do? You're probably going to shake someone's hand if you're meeting them for the first time. Why? Because you had a past experience somewhere that taught you that this is how it goes. But maybe this person is going to be completely different. Maybe they don't want to touch me. See, like, even in the most basic sense, and that's an extreme sense, but in the most basic sense, what you're doing every day that you're going out is to be the most efficient that you possibly can. There's a certain amount of bias and there's a story that you carry with you. See, the other thing that happens with this bias, this storytelling, is that our subconscious is also trying to save our butts. So what do I mean by saving our butts? Well, storytelling, bias, is a survival instinct. And you know what it's designed to do? It's designed to keep you out of harm. You ever, when you were a kid, put your hand in fire, touched a hot stove? I bet you never did that again. Matter of fact, if you ever have done that when you were a kid, if you've ever thought the stove was hot and you leaned into it and then you felt yourself just like have a knee jerk, a real quick reaction to it, a reflex to it, whether it was even hot enough to burn you, you felt a little bit of warmth and then you pull your hand away. What was it? Well, that's what your brain's actually working for you. It's trying to keep you safe. It's trying to keep you surviving and helping you live another day and not get injured. And so what we understand is that when the story is true in life, it's healthy. When you really are seeing something that's pretty objective, then it's healthy. But the reality is when the story is a lie, it limits us. Here's what's the problem is that we can't go to someplace new with the way that we're thinking right now. And what's happening right now with this bias in you is it's preventing you from doing anything new because it doesn't have enough information and data on it. And so we avoid new things. Let's just keep doing the things that we already know. And let's keep limiting ourselves because that was painful at some point in life. And I'm going to tell a story about it. So let's avoid anything that looks like that. You know what happens when you start a new relationship? You know what happens when you do something new? And so what we end up doing is that we end up telling a bigger story about it. Have you ever seen? I'm going to give you some real life examples that are a little bit funny about bias, and let's see if you recognize any of these out of real life, so you can understand what it is and how it truly limits you. Have you ever seen the glass half full? And the optimist says the glass is half full. See, I literally talked like that because I am an optimist. The pessimist says the glass is half empty. And you know what Lay's potato chip says? The glass is full. For those of you who have ever bought Lay's potato chips, no, hey, not knocking that company, but you ever see that huge bag and then half of it is actually full of air? See, we see that in a real life example of what a confirmation bias really looks like. It's that we're looking at the exact same picture, but we tell a different story depending on where we're living. Here's a couple of more examples. What about this? This is a referee wearing a blindfold and out there with walking sticks. What are we really saying about referees? Well, kind of the joke is that referee is blind. Or what else do they say? The referee is getting paid. The referee is doing home cooking. The referee is working for the other team. Well, here's the reality is, whether those things are happening or not, you know what ends up happening is that if the home team or the visiting team gets a call in their favor, then they like the referees. If they get a call that is against them, then they think that the referees suck and that they have a whole story. And people do this all the time. When you watch sports teams play at any level, what do you see? Parents wanting to beat up referees, people screaming at them and everything else. It's a pretty thankless job. Matter of fact, in California, the high school referees are becoming a rare specimen because a lot of them are getting beat up so bad it's not worth the time, whether they're good at it or not. The reality is that based on the story that we tell, could just be a bad call. It could actually be a good call, but I don't like the call. See, there's a lot of different options when I look at this scenario. What about this? What if not to trigger you guys, but some of you are getting triggered right now. CNN, Fox News. You know what we've seen in the last handful of years? What do we say? Media bias. Not that we could possibly be biased. Now, we can say that media is biased. That's fine. We can agree on that. But we never say that we're biased. You know what? Every now and then, so a conservative might look at CNN and be like, I can't believe they showed this on CNN. Wow, they actually told the truth for once. And the people who are on the other side look at Fox News and say exactly the same thing. And they think that people who watch these things are complete cultish people who are brain dead. They think that about each other. So people can literally look at a logo of a news source these days and get triggered by it. Why? Because bias is so prevalent in us. What do? Is that we couldn't possibly think that anybody is telling the truth. Why? Because we have a story about it. Now, I can probably agree at a certain level. Listen, I'm just using it as an objective example of how negative we go when we see things, see fancy cars, see whatever we see in the world that triggers a response. Where's the response coming out of? It's coming out of a story that we tell because there's a bias that we're actually flowing from. So going back to this story that we were looking at earlier, see, when I've heard this one, no one's interested in hiring me as a coach. Usually what's happening out of something like this is that they usually have some sort of experience. I'm going to try to actually go back in time and get a smaller, let me see if I can get a smaller marker. We usually have an experience somewhere, but there's a bias that's actually formed, so that if anything happens, like there's some kind of new action that happens in someone's life, it's all going to be interpreted by the lens by which they see this particular action. I'll give you an example. So some years ago, I was talking about this very subject. And this woman joined live, literally on the Facebook. And she's saying, yeah, no one wants to pay me for coaching. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me about that. You said no one, which seems really extreme, but rather than saying, well, that we know it's not no one. You ever hear somebody say, I've tried everything to lose weight, and they haven't really tried everything, but that's the bias. They think that they are an exception rather than exceptional. And so when you think of yourself as an exception to everyone else, then there's no way that you can be helped, and there's nothing that can actually work for you, right? So anyway, we end up. So this lady's watching, and she literally says, "Yeah, I'm glad that you're talking about this because no one wants to pay me for coaching." I'm like, "Okay, well, tell me about that. You said no one. Tell me what's happened that has led you to believe that." And she goes on to tell me how, and she's literally like commenting and everything else. So this is happening live. Somehow it's happening live. So I look at it, and she tells a story that she's like, there's been a lot of people who have been interested in me becoming their coach, but then they don't want to pay for it. And I'm like, okay. Well, when you say a lot of people, are you saying like 100 people? Well, no, not 100 people. Okay, well, 50 people? Well, no, not 50 people. I'm like, okay, 25 people? No, not 25. 10 people? No, not 10 people. I'm like, well, how many people really? Well, there is 3 people. Okay, 3 people. So what you're saying is that 3 people, in what happened? Did you give them a complimentary coaching session or whatever? Well, no, not exactly. Okay, well, what did you do? Well, they messaged me on Instagram. They sent me some direct messages on Instagram. And then I gave them some advice, and we went back and forth, and I gave them some advice. And then at the end of it, they didn't want to become a client. And I'm like, wait. Okay, so what you're saying is, you said a while ago, I'm just going back in time. You said a lot of people, but we're establishing right now that it's really not a lot of people. It's 3 people. 3 people who don't know what you do, and because coaches don't sit around giving advice over Instagram, do we? Is that what we do? And the reality is that her story that she was telling, see, it was really easy. What was it? It's confirmation bias. The more I got to know this person over time, the more I understood that there were some really bad belief systems about themselves, some undeserving attitudes and everything else. So it was a lot easier to take that as a rejection. 3 people sending you a direct message. So what you're allowing so this is what I told her. So what you're allowing someone to do is some anonymous person who could be anywhere on the planet is messaging you through a direct message on Instagram, fairly anonymously, opening the door into your inbox, your personal space, and trying to solicit advice from you. And you're getting your heart broken because they don't know anything about you and you don't know anyone. And so you're making a judgment call that no one wants to pay you and no one wants to work with you. And at that point, she's like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. See, some of you are posting messages on social media to your friends and family. No one's responding. And some of you are telling the story, well, no one's interested in my coaching. I'm posting all the time and I'm talking about this new thing that I'm embarking on and everything else. Well, what are the other options in that? I'll tell you, out of my own personal life, I have coached one family member in the last 20 years, and it wasn't even them individually. It was working with their team in 20 years. I'm a pretty well-known person. I'm a pretty decent coach. They haven't asked me. I haven't even coached that many friends. I mean, I've coached some friends, but not that many friends in my life. And I'm not offended by it. And I'm not expecting it either. You know why? There's a few different reasons. One is I'm not looking to give people discounts. And so if someone's going to approach me, they shouldn't expect, if they think that I have something to give to them, it's the same way that I'm going to treat a friend or a family member. There's no friend discounts. I pay people market price if I ever use them. If I think that they're good enough, then I want to value them. And a lot of times when you're talking about the things that you want in your life, a lot of times friends and family are not going to be the people who are going to be the biggest contributors to what you are doing in that. They don't understand it. I was with a friend. He's a great guy just some weeks ago. He oversees an organization, good guy. We're eating at a nice restaurant over the water. And he brings up to me some individual locally that we both know He says, this guy so-and-so, he keeps asking me if he can coach me. You believe that this guy wants to charge $250 an hour to coach me? And I was like, yeah. He's like, he's like, work with a life coach. Are you kidding me? He literally said that to me over dinner. And he's like, wow, this guy doesn't even realize he gets it. He understands it, but but the reality is that it didn't offend me. You know why? Because that person's not my ideal client. Your friends and family are not your ideal clients. If they're not interested in what you have to offer, they don't want you in that kind of way, they're not willing to pay your fee, they're not your client. So who gives a crap what they think? I don't. Why should you? And so the reality is they don't want to pay you $150 an hour, $200 an hour, whatever your fee is. They don't want to pay me $150 an hour or $100 an hour. You know who else? They don't want to pay $100 an hour or even $50 an hour for Tony Robbins. So it doesn't matter because it's nothing personal. See, what we have to understand is that there is a problem if our ideal clients do not want to work with us. But that's not really the issue at all. Some of you are blowing yourself out of the water talking to people who are never going to pay your fee and are never going to pay anybody's fee. So quit getting your hearts broken by them. Quit getting butt hurt over people who are never going to be your ideal client. It's a complete waste of time. It's futility. But people do this all the time because a lot of times, and I'm not knocking friends and family in general, and I'm trying not to knock anybody that we know. I'm not saying that people don't want stuff. What I am saying is that many of you are trying to get to the next level in your life. And some of those people who are with you right now are not people who understand it, are not people who are necessarily trying to progress and develop and grow themselves. Not everyone has a growth mindset, and that's fine. I can still love those people. I can still serve them. I can still be their friend and all of those other things. But I'm trying to go somewhere. And it's completely fine if those people never want to work with me. The thing is that there's plenty of business out there. There's plenty of people. Listen, you only need 5 clients to become a 6-figure coach. You realize that? It's not about trying to get 50 clients. Get 5 people. Have a premium fee. Make 6 figures off of 5 people. That's very realistic. It's done. It's done all the time. And so let's quit worrying about the people who would never be our clients and telling a story about it and tell a new story. Whatever it is that you're saying right now, some of you haven't really even put the work in your business yet, and you're trying to tell a story like no one's interested in hiring me as a coach. You made 5 posts on Instagram. You made a handful of posts on social media or something like that. You sent one email. Let's tell the real story. Let's tell a real story of how much work you've really put into it. How consistent have you been? Have you been working in this business every day, at least putting an hour towards it, like a serious hour that is not your training. I'm not talking about that. Not listening to me. That doesn't count. I'm saying how many of you have actually spent realistically have put in an hour, put in 2 hours, put in 10 hours in a week, just trying to make initial contact and finding, after discovered who your potential clients really are, you've discovered your niche, that you specifically went out and you communicated really well to those people to go out and attract clients. And most coaches who say this line of no one's interested in hiring me as a coach have never actually put in the work. Put in the work for a week. Put in the work for 30 days, consistent action before you ever tell me. I was listening to something the other day. I think it was like Steve Harvey. And he was talking to people about being extraordinary. And he says, you know what? You're on Pacific time and you're not getting up until 8 or 9 o'clock and getting started in your business. Do you realize the East Coast has already been up at work for 3 or 4 hours before you ever thought about it? See, I'm not just talking about hard work. I'm talking about a mindset that we have to have a different lens and we have to have different habits than what we're living right now. And some of you have never held yourself accountable for the dream that's in your heart. That's what I'm really talking about. See, your work is really good at getting you to hustle for what they want because they have deadlines and they have accountability in that. Your school, when you were in school, did a really good job of holding you accountable for your grades and graduating and everything else because you didn't get to determine what the grade system was and what homework you did and what assignments that you did and what exams you took and everything else. They held you accountable for graduating, for making the grade. Your work holds you accountable for turning in reports for a certain amount of volume and productivity and everything else. But when it comes to your dream, how many of you are really, like, seriously, that you're holding yourself accountable for the kind of work that you show up, the kind of habits? Listen, most of you would have to know, if you half-heartedly treated a diet, if your kids half-heartedly treated their homework in their school like you are about starting a coaching career, you know that it would be failure. You know that they would never start. You know that they would probably, you can't not show up to school for 3 or 4 days or 3 weeks in a row and expect something good to come out of it. I mean, let's talk seriously about this. Let's talk on this fact side of things. I don't want to talk about this area, and I don't want to just talk about your belief system. Let's talk about what's really going on. Are you putting in the work? Are you committed to doing what you need to do? And looking at things, not to knock yourself or anything else, but let's tell a better story, because right now, some of you are living under a ceiling that really doesn't exist. It only exists because you believe that it exists. So how do we get to transformation in this? Here's how we get to transformation. Transformation means, first of all, stop zeroing in on the most painful option that's on the table. Some of you, that's the way that you look. This is the only option. No one's responded to me. No one responded. Nobody watched that video. Nobody responded to that email. No one. I went to this networking group, and it's exactly what I thought was going to happen. No one said hi to me. Everybody was just over there. They had their own little clique. See, we tell these stories, and we give ourselves an excuse for not showing up. Stop zeroing in on the most painful option. What are the other options that are on the table? There's a lot of options. If I make a post, you know what one of the options is? Oh, I post it and resonate. I have a lot of other options. Maybe I posted at the wrong time of the day. Maybe no one was on their news feed. Maybe I'm posting in the wrong place if I'm on. So there's so many options that I can look at. So I can choose any option that I want. Human beings have this ability to focus on the most painful option. It's something that you're going to have to start recognizing in your life, because you probably already do this. And if you're focusing on the most painful, hurtful, difficult, disappointing option, you're going to find it every time. Transformation also means that you've got to give other stories personal validity. What do I mean by that? I mean that you've got to feast yourself on the success of other people. Right now in our Jumpstart program, I'm watching people get clients, become six-figure coaches in a short amount of time. And it's really easy for people that right now don't presently have that success to be like, oh, well, that's good for them. People want to work for them, but that would never work for me. No, the reality is that other people are getting clients. Other people are becoming six-figure coaches while you tell a story that you can't do it. And it's not about them, because a lot of times people have the ability to look at life as though it's a pie. And so when you see people getting a really big slice over here, you're like, oh, there's less pie for me. When the reality is there's not less pie, there's unlimited pie. And you just need to show up, and you need to cut yourself a hunk of that pie or cake or whatever, chocolate, whatever your fixation in terms of a delicacy is, you go after that thing. And so you can feast yourself on the success of others, and you can celebrate the success of other people, because what it's telling you is what is possible for you, not what's only possible for someone else. Like we said a couple of weeks ago, you realize that there are people who are not as smart and are less talented, have less ability, have more impairments, have worse health than you, that are doing bigger and better things. Why is that? It's because you're not an exception. It means that they're taking what they have and they're being accountable with it. Here's what transformation also means. Transformation also means that you have the ability to focus on the story that gives you the most resources and it gives you the most options. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll give you a simple example out of the last week of our life. My 18-year-old, she was dealing with a relational issue that turned into all of this mess and everything else from someone who's not her friend and some of these other things. But anyway, basically what ended up happening is that my daughter, and listen, you can say I'm biased, but the reality is that most everybody who knows her can say really the same thing. She's one of the most amazing, compassionate, kind human beings ever. And this person was pretty brutally mean to my daughter with the way that she had done some things. And the reality is that this person's never going to be my daughter's friend. Like she has boundaries with people, all of this other stuff. She understands these things. Well, yesterday she came into the living room and she says, "Hey, I want to read you guys this text. What do you think?" And she reads it, and it's a text from this person who had done all of this damage, tried to do all this relational damage and everything else, and basically said in that text, "Hey, you know what? You're an amazing person, and what I did was nothing personal, and all of this other stuff." And she said, What do you guys think about this text, and what do you think that I should do?" I said, "Well, let me start on the doing part first. On the doing part, that person's not owed anything. They're not owed a response if you don't want to give one." I said, "But you know what? The other thing that you could do," I said, we could all sit here and talk about how evil this person is and that they're trying to manipulate and they're trying to do all kinds of things. But you know what? We could say that because that's a survival instinct. That's what people do to validate what their behavior is. But you know what? And you can think that if you want. I said, but you know what your other option is? Your other option is to give your heart what it needs right now. Your other option is, hey, take that person and give them the benefit of the doubt that they're remorseful for what they did and that they see something amazing in you that was worth enough. And you're not going to be in a relationship with them anyway, but this is going to allow you to forgive, to release, and actually validate yourself moving forward rather than feeling terrible about it. But it's your option. Why? Because it's all going to be the lens. Now, listen, it remains to be seen. It remains to be seen for any of you. What option are you going to look at? Are you going to look at the one that gives you the most resources and options in your life? Or are you going to choose the narrative and the story and the bias that makes you the exception to the rule rather than making you exceptional? You always have that choice. Let me pay the bills really quickly. For those of you who have not gotten trained and certified as a coach, we have a Jumpstart program. And $97 a month with a 3-month minimum commitment might sound like a lot for some of you right now, except that of everything that we pour in to this program. Because not only do we include, not only is it a business development program, but you get trained and certified through Jumpstart. Our next live weekend is September 9th through the 11th. We go an entire weekend. You can actually start Friday, end Sunday night, wake up certified on Monday morning after you turn your assignments in and take the exam. It's 7 powerful sessions that we go through the beginning, all the core competencies of coaching, and we have live Q&As at the end of each one of those because it is a live weekend. Now, you can do boot camp, self-paced if you like, but live is definitely a great option for you because you meet a lot of people over the course of that weekend. You get to see live role playing, you get to see it demonstrated, but you can also experience it as well. All 7 of those sessions bringing you from about a 40,000 foot view to all the way to how do you structure your business and everything else. We do all of that. We give you a lot of samples. We give you a lot of tools for your tool belt as a coach. Normally, this program's $247 by itself, and it's about a $3,500 value, but you get it included inside of Jumpstart. Jumpstart also includes Brand Camp, because I see one of the major problems for coaches is in their marketing messaging, that no one can tell who it is that they help, what problems that they help people solve, or anything. Brand Camp walks you through 13 hours. We walk you through with tools, with examples, with wireframes for websites, like everything. We literally take you from the very begin to the end on all of your messaging. We show you how to write a sales page. We show you how what components you need to have for your website, how to write an email. All of these things are actually included in this. And if that was standalone, it would be worth thousands of dollars. It's included in Jumpstart for $97 a month. We also just got finished with this new edition, which is the Coaching Product Launch Blueprint. It's 8 sessions. It's 10 plus hours of a walkthrough, the step-by-step tools to go from zero. If you have nothing, you don't have a brand name, you don't have a product, you have nothing. You can take this, whether it's going to be a membership site or webinars or a coaching program or whatever. We start from the beginning of brainstorming all the way to finalizing a product that you launch. And we go through this in 8 sessions. And you can literally go from zero to launch as quickly as you actually would like to. And funnels are included. We give you the 14-day product launch sequence. We talk about how you post on social media. All of those things are a part of this particular program. Jumpstart itself is 30 core modules. It's the A to Z on how to develop your coaching practice. Everything from how do you attract clients, how do you discover your niche, how do you price yourself? We give you a template called the Explosive First Coaching Session that will demonstrate to people that you can actually help them. All of these things that I've talked about, high level talked about, it's hundreds and hundreds of hours. Listen, you'll never use all of them, all the material that we give you. But here's what we can tell you. You don't have to guess. You don't have to have any guesswork on what you need to do to launch your coaching practice. You don't have to do it alone because we have a live group call every Wednesday where I give you feedback and we do ongoing training and everything else. We also have an extraordinary community of coaches who are always helping one another. Like literally today, someone is getting ready to launch their new course in the next couple of weeks. And a lot of us are beta testing her course to give her some tips. Hey, here's what works. Here's what doesn't work or whatever. Listen, you can do this thing. I understand your friends and family don't understand what you're doing. You can't do this thing alone. You shouldn't have to do this thing alone. And most of the coaching groups that are out there in professional organizations, they're just a bunch of navel gazers, unfortunately. They don't come around and collaborate and support people because that community doesn't really exist out there. That's what we have created. That was our intention all the way back in 2016 when we launched the Jumpstart program. We have the best community of coaches right now that we've ever had. And listen, there's no excuses for you. It's $97 a month with a 3-month minimum commitment. Everybody else is charging you thousands just to get trained and certified, and probably tens of thousands to try to find a shrink-wrapped program to try to launch your business that may or may not work for you. And with nobody giving you an eye on it or anything else, listen, we're here. Let's give up the excuses. The link is inside the description. We'd love to have you join us. Hey, let me say hello to a couple more people who are in here. Ebony says, the LCTI community is everything. Lynette says, I've grown so much being a part of this community. Ebony says, Jumpstart is a new budget item for me. I will be a member until forever. Harvey says, best experience I've had to launch a career. Oh, it's so good. Awesome. And everybody's talking about boot camp. Listen, that's only a couple of weeks away. I think it's like 18 days away. So if you get enrolled, you can join the next one and you get unlimited audits of boot camp in the future, which is amazing. Awesome. Yes, actually, boot camp weekend did change to the weekend of the 9th to the 11th because we're trying to negotiate a couple of vacation holidays or whatever. And so that's when it'll be, the 9th through the 11th. Jennifer says, this program is the best you'll ever invest in. It will improve your daily life. Thank you. So good. Awesome. Harvey says it's about the work, and Harvey is a sales coach, so listen to him. It's about the work towards prospecting and target marketing towards a close. So good. Adrienne says, I've reached out to friends and family for coach practicing and disappointed that they have not stepped up to support me in perfecting my coaching craft. I'm learning now not to take it personally as I continue to search for coach practice clients. So sorry to hear that. Again, we love our friends and family. They're not going where we're going, and they're usually in different junctures in life and different things that they're doing. And I remember, just in a personal story, I remember when I got laid off and I was trying to make big decisions about our life moving forward. And it was really painful because we had moved all the way to California. We were broke. I had no money coming in, and I've been laid off for a few months. And I remember talking to my dad, and he was just upset about the entire situation because I'd never been in my adult life without a job or couldn't find one. And I kept seeing jobs that were offered to me, but it wasn't the right fit, and it would always be out of state and everything else. And, I remember telling my dad, I was like, listen, I know this is really painful for you to watch, but give me 6 months and have a little faith, and you're going to see that the decision that I'm making is the right decision, that I'm hearing from God. I'm being very prayerful and I'm being very responsible, but I've got to do this thing. And you know what? Hindsight is always 20/20, isn't it? Hindsight proves, what you saw in the very beginning. And sometimes friends and family sometimes they have are a little bit misguided, but they have our best interests in mind. But a lot of people are not willing to go where we're getting ready to go. I mean, we're talking about entrepreneurship, and most people are not willing to do that. They're not willing to risk, even though we'd probably have to say by today's economy and everything else. Listen, if you don't have a side hustle or are working on it, you're probably putting yourself at the greatest risk right now in your life if you're not doing something like that. So, again, I appreciate that. Jason's given us some scripture. A prophet is not without honor, but in his own country and among his own kin and his own house. Don't expect family or friends. And Elle says, very well explained. Thank you, Paul. We need to be aware of what is real from what is imaginary because our brain doesn't distinguish real from unreal. So we will support that belief. So good. Thank you. See who else I need to say hello to really quick. And Adrienne is joining us from Toronto. Tara from Vegas. Teresa from Kissimmee, Florida. Gyla from Wyoming. Who else do I need to say hello to? Terry from Thousand Oaks. So good. Who else do I need to say hello? Mike says, I'm in the middle of brand camp right now. So good. Awesome. Well, very good, everyone. Well, I've kept you as long as I probably need to keep you. Listen, that link is inside the description. Get enrolled. Join us. If you haven't joined Power Lunch, it's another online community that is completely free. Just look it up, Power Lunch for Coaches. You'll see my picture on there. We have a growing community that's in there of just aspiring coaches, but also I'll be live tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific in there. That is noon Central and 1 p.m. Eastern. And we do it a little bit differently. It's a little bit more relaxed. We go Zoom, so you can register there. And you can join us via Zoom. That way you actually have a connection with us and everything else. And tomorrow I'm just going to be doing a Q&A that's around marketing and attracting clients. So if you want to join us there, go into Power Lunch. So just go into your Facebook group search and put Power Lunch for Coaches and look for my picture, and you'll find us over there. So again, hey, the link is in there. In there, $97 a month to build a six-figure coaching practice is nothing. Most people who know about starting businesses and everything else, businesses usually for most people have taken years before they became profitable. You can get the steps and you can get the support and you can get your business up and going and be profitable in month one. It's really easy to do because you should be bringing home 90% of what you make as a coach. So I'm going to invite you again to click that link and be a part of it. A couple of more people that I need to say hello to. And Tara says, one of the best perks of joining Jumpstart is Paul literally holds your hand when you're not on track. That's priceless. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Tammy's joining us from Tuscaloosa. I'm LSU. I'm an LSU fan. So you guys are kind of like the evil empire over there. You guys got our coach who got us our first national championship in decades. And now you guys are just loading up all the trophies with that guy. So anyway, I won't speak his name. But anyway, listen, I appreciate you guys all immensely. Have a great rest of your week and take care.